Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you want to get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
If you're a facilities manager at a university, you know students rely on the cafeteria for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the occasional late-night snack. So when a dishwasher breaks down and dirty plates pile up, the mess hall can turn messy in the blink of an eye. Enter Grainger. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast delivery, the product you need now is never far away. So you can turn that dishwasher back into a lean, clean washing machine. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting if you reach out to me through my email, oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. We've been promoting our friend Ted Rubenstein. He's got that GoFundMe to help raise funds for him. 72 years old. He's about to lose his home. So we got that GoFundMe up there. But I also have in the Patreon a short little 20-minute interview we did with the Ted Rubenstein about the Larry Flint publications, his work over there, and his work with Dave Emery and Mae Brussels. And we're going to have, we're working on something, a big little project for you that I think you're going to love.
Yeah, at one time I actually wanted to get a nonprofit for Centerfolds or Playmates that had, come in hard times and everything else, and we're living on the street. And that was actually when I had the Playboy running team. I was the first ever they ever gave a license to, and I had it for 4 years, but then I got pregnant. But anyways,
wait. If you're wondering who's talking right now, it's Charlotte Kemp, okay? Who is our guest today, Charlotte Kemp. She's the author of the book Centerfolds, A Collection of Stories. And we've been talking off the air for so long, I just got so comfortable there. But you can check her out at cbkmediallc.com. You go there. You can find her at CBK Media LLC on Instagram. She's also on Facebook. But the book we're going to be talking about today is Centerfolds, A Collection of Stories, because Charlotte Kemp is a former Playboy Playmate Centerfold. December, I believe it was, in 1980. So, Charlotte Kemp, tell us about yourself.
1982, thank you.
God bless you, 1982. That was a good year for me, too. Tell us about yourself. Who is Charlotte Kemp? Before getting into the book or anything like that, who is Charlotte Kemp? Fascinating stuff. A marathon runner, a swimmer, all this kind of stuff. Some kind of cement business, staining concrete yet. A Renaissance woman. So tell us about yourself. Who is Charlotte Kemp?
I like to think of myself as a free, multifaceted person. I read, I write, I did the concrete staining, it's called faux concrete, and I did in California, but when I got down Texas, the water level is so high that they don't have that here. I mean, you cannot realistically do any kind of space here because the water table is so high, and it's always moist, and that doesn't work. But anyways, it took me about 22 years to get all the stories, and I rejected a lot of stories because they were just, too like biddy-bida, and a lot of women were not willing to give the real stories because they were afraid that Hef would exclude them from parties or whatever. And he did block 20 or 25 years ago. He did block my first, he basically publishers. I had a lawyer in Boston and tried to, get me into the publishing, and he blocked me. So
yeah, that's been my
after-
experience too. Trying to book former Playboy playmates, because you hear all these stories about the Hef and stuff, and the scandal kind of stuff. And I did interview that woman who grew up in the Playboy Mansion. Let me see if I can pull up her name real quick. Her father was a doctor in Playboy, not Bay.
Who, Mark Saginaw?
I
His
think
daughter?
so. Yeah, Jennifer Saginaw. Yeah, we had her on the show. Playground: A Childhood Lost in the Playboy Mansion. Did you know her?
No, not. I knew Mark
Gotcha.
very well, and Hef. I mean, there's something about what they did on A&E, which was like total derogatory and everything about Hef and Playboy, etc. But I've got like 25 women that I will do either my next book or do a YouTube live podcast about if these women had so many bad things to say about Playboy, then why did they stay with Playboy? Why didn't they just quit and get out of it? But
what was your
did.
experience then? By the way, too, I forgot to mention you did quite a few films too. Risky Business, you had a small part in that with. I
was one of the hookers.
Tom Cruise, Frankenhooker, which is a B comedy type of science fiction movie.
It's out on Prime now.
I saw it.
Frankenhooker just came out on Prime, and I was like, "What?"
I saw it. But tell us, what was your experience?
My experiences were good and bad.
Yeah.
You got to look at Playboy as in like a microcosm of Playmates and everything together. So, you have good and you have bad experiences. But I tend to dwell, I'm an optimist, I tend to dwell on the good things that happen. And, it was my choice to be there, good and bad. I had been 86 from the mansion twice and then let back in and everything else. I mean, it was just, it's kind of like a business arrangement.
Yeah.
And at one time, I had gotten, we had a lot of girls that wanted to go back and, after they did internet and everything else, that they had our pictures all over the place that we were never paid for. So we received no residuals at all. But, I've been in like 14 magazines all over the world as a playmate. And, and I was like, well, but when we started, we kind of signed away our rights, but it didn't involve all the extras. And we had a group of women, many women, that were like, why don't we get residuals, But then there was no union for Playmates, so,
Well, Charlotte, I was reading one of your online bios, and it says you came from a small town, and then you got involved in the Playboy magazine. So how did that evolution take place? What happened?
I was born in Omaha, but it was like 6 months, and then we moved back to Michigan. And my grandfather had been mayor of Grosse Pointe for like 4 terms. Very sociable man and everything else. We moved back to Michigan, and then we moved to Iowa and then Ohio. I'm a Midwest girl.
Yeah.
And I didn't even have sex till I was 19. And, basically I did my own thing. I've always been kind of a loner, and the fact that I do my own stuff where, people may agree or not agree, whatever, but I don't really care. It's that old, not Atlas Shrugged, but Ayn Rand story about, the man who does what he wants, no matter what the consequences, because he goes for it.
Well, Charlotte Kemp,
God
let
help
me ask
me
you
with
this.
that.
Growing up in these small towns, Michigan and what was the other one?
Well, Detroit is not a small town, but
you know what I mean. Like, were you the prettiest girl in high school there? Were you the prettiest girl in the town? But when people stopping you in the street saying, "Oh my God, Charlotte, you're so beautiful."
yeah, that did happen, but I never really looked at myself that way. I was such a jock. I hung out with guys. I would, climb trees and started playing tennis, skiing, everything when I was young, and then running and everything. I kind of was, I had like a tunnel vision of what I thought of myself.
Yeah, when Charlotte says she was a jock, she's run like 15 marathons. She was a swimmer, right? I'm like, I'm
31 marathons.
Yeah, see what I mean? Yeah. So you were like a real jock.
Triathlons and pro-am tennis and swimming. I went to the Junior Olympics, and I wanted to be in the Olympics. That was my huge goal. But I had high jumped and came over and missed the mat and broke both my patellas, which are your kneecaps, and was in crutches and at that time they don't have the soft boot or anything. I was like in cast, and that kind of blew out that. But still always loved swimming, and I kind of love sports at every angle. I mean, cricket, I just started learning when I lived in London. I learned that, and I appreciate it. A lot of people don't appreciate, well, a lot of women don't appreciate sports, but, that is my comfort.
Well, then how did you branch out into like modeling and Playboy? Did they find you? Did you reach out to them?
Well, I had been modeling in college, and I was like the sweetheart of 3 different fraternities. I was supposed to join Kappa Alpha Theta Catwomen, and on the night of our inauguration, whatever, I skipped it. And I went, I don't want to live with 40 women. I really don't want to live with 40 women. And they hated me, but I was still the sweetheart. I started doing like calendars and more, modeling. And when I went to Chicago, my roommate was Jill DeVries, and I didn't set out to be a playmate. I'd never modeled nude or anything else. And we had basically had a bottle of red wine. She said, come on. And we didn't live far from the Playboy building. So we walked over there, and we're tipsy and everything, and we get up there, and they've got the whole, David Meese shot me. That was my test shots. The whole thing done. And, when you drink a little, you become more uninhibited. And we shot test shots, and the next morning I had a limo. That was Saturday night. Sunday morning, I had a limo taking me to the airport to L.A., and my Centerfolds was actually shot on Monday and Tuesday, and it was, boom, I was Miss December.
Well, let me ask you a question then. Do you think that was kind of predatory? Like, you didn't have any chance to prepare for this, talk to a lawyer, talk to your family about it? You're having a bottle of wine, next thing you know, you're in L.A.
Well, I hadn't done the sheet, and my friend actually, my first sheet said, what do you love? Drugs, sex, rock and roll. I put, all the weird things that they don't want the girl next door to say. And Mickey Garcia, actually, I was the last playmate, and she said, no, you got to redo this, I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't know. I've always had an open mind. it isn't predatory to me because, you know what? I mean, I had people that said, Charlotte, don't do it. I had other people that said, Charlotte, it'll be a great experience. And, you know, I had three things when I was 3 years old. I learned to read from my sister when I was 2. And by the time I was 6, I was reading novels. But the thing about it is I've always had my own mind of what I was going to do, everything. And one of the top 3 things, I was going to travel, which I have all over the earth. The other thing is I was going to experience everything that came to me. Because I don't think you can actually judge people or anything like that unless you've experienced pretty much everything.
You know, and Charlotte, things were so, we were saying off the air, we're about the same age, and things were so different back in those days. And like a 20-year-old back then was a lot more experienced, a lot more mature than a 20-year-old today. When I was a landlord at 21. I owned a nightclub in Manhattan at 25. Okay, I had a lawyer disbarred at 25. Okay, so it was just like a whole different world. And when you see these kids today, they can't even get on the phone and have a conversation they're afraid to talk on the phone. You know?
Well, I mean, you know, the millennials, and God bless them, but, you know, my son is one of them, that, you know, everything they can get on the internet, anything.
Looking for excitement? Chumba Casino is here. Play anytime, play anywhere. Play on the train, play at the store, play at home, play when you're bored. Play today for your chance to win and get daily bonuses when you log in. So what are you waiting for? Don't delay. Chumba Casino is free to play.
Experience social gameplay like never before. Go to Chumba Casino right now to play hundreds of games, including online slots, bingo, Slingo, and more. Live the Chumba life at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Everything. So, you know, they're much more, I think it actually, they're more inhibited because everything is done on, you know, the internet or, you know, even meeting people, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, they don't have the drive. Well, maybe not drive so much, but intimation to go out and just do what they have in their head.
And they're much more cynical too, and they're also they have anxiety. They have anxiety over every little thing. You know, let them go through what we went through at 20 years old. They would have some real serious anxiety. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I traveled all over the world by myself.
Yeah,
and at 20 years old now, if I was 20 years old now, I wouldn't do that by myself because there are a lot more predatory people and, you know, the sex trade and everything else. It's alarming. And it was back then too, but, you know, I'm kind of tall and I have this aura about me that people just don't want to fuck with me.
Didn't happen.
Don't want to, like, you know,
take advantage of you
in my personal space.
So, Charlotte Kemp, tell us, what are some of the stories we're going to find in this book here? Centerfolds, a collection of stories.
Oh, well, there is one of the stories I always thought was very fascinating. I mean, my stories at first, and then it goes chronologically from the 60s to the 2000s. But, like, Cynthia Myers was supposed to be with Jay Sebring the night that Manson killed Sharon Tate, Jay Sebring, and everyone. She was supposed to be at Jay's house picking up her ring that she had left and go out that night. And she decided not to. And she was in the Valley of the Dolls and had to do a lesbian scene. And she was kind of like freaked out about that. And there's stories about that. And, you know, I have 20 women in the book, and there's color photos, everything else. And I think 9 of them are actually have passed. So their stories are immortalized in the book. And Pamela Bryant, Pamela Bryant she has a poem, and then she goes on about her and OJ. And there are stories that you will never, ever hear.
What was her story about OJ? We do a lot of shows about OJ here. So what was her story about OJ?
She just basically, she has blonde hair, blue eyes. She had an affair with him, and but in her story, she basically says that it was like an affair, or not an affair, but like a relationship, and then she was like, yeah, I'm over this. Mm-hmm. And Pamela became, she was an orphan and went through the whole housing thing and everything. And when she died, she was walking my friend's dog in Maui on the beach. And they said she had basically asthma, and had an asthma attack and then cardiac arrest. But I don't believe that. But her stories are great. And Kim Mallon went out with Tom Cruise for like a year, and tells her story about how prima donna he was, even early on.
That's right. I was at Ventana Canyon in Arizona when they were filming Young Guns, and the whole bunch were there. All those kids were there, staying at the same hotel as me. And Cruise would sit by himself the whole time. He wouldn't socialize with anybody during the film of that movie.
Well, and then Kim Mallon's stories in the book are about they go to restaurants and he would like totally dismiss people. Mm-hmm. And he's in his 20s, and they bring over a bottle of wine, and he was like, ugh, get this away from me. I'm just very dismissive and mean. And while filming Risky Business, I was one of the hookers, and actually I got sick, and they took me kind of out of it. But he and, God, what was her name? Were actually supposed to be dating, but every night Jill DeVries and he were, wild. She said he was like an acrobat in bed. So, and I remember, oh God, what was her name? What was
the actress in Risky Business?
Yeah.
I can find it in 2 seconds.
I know. I was
got it right here.
I was just about to. Anyway,
Rebecca De Mornay.
She came.
Rebecca De Mornay.
Yeah, she came and knocked on our door a couple times. I didn't answer it, and Jill and Tom were, sleeping together in her room, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm not going through this. This is your story. I'm not going through this." But, and then, there are stories in this book that people would just go, wow, what? There were playmates. I had never known this until I got their stories that weren't accepted for 2 to 10 years. They did boob jobs on them. They did all these test shoots and and they weren't accepted until, finally. It took some of these girls 8-10 years.
Now, you actually lived at the Playboy Mansion for a while, right?
I did. I couldn't justify having an apartment when I was like 50 weeks out of 52 weeks in the year, I was traveling all over and doing, everything, signing autographs and all this stuff. And I thought, why should I, and I talked to Mary O'Connor, who was Hef's assistant from day one until she died. And she said, yeah, just leave your stuff here and we'll put it in a lock, I mean, you don't have that much stuff when you're 20 years old anyway. So, no, I just, I basically lived there, and it was great. I had so much fun. And playing in the Olympics, I mean, we have a couple stories about that. And, Gig, Gangal, Kimberly Heron, Monique St. Pierre, all of us, we had so much fun.
Hey, how about Dorothy Stratton? Did you run into her? That's around that time, right?
No, before my time, I didn't.
Oh, it was before? Okay.
Yeah. No, I was in 82, and she died, was murdered in 81.
Oh, okay. All right. So just right before you. Now, what about people like Bill? You hear about Bill Cosby hanging out there all the time. Did you hear any stories about him?
I have my own story, but there's not a whole lot of stories in the book about him. But I have my own story that they call the green room. There's a big table, and we had breakfast and, whatever, snacks and everything else. And I came down, I was sitting there, and he came down. He was in a white robe. And the white robes always meant that you had taken part in, an orgy or whatever with Hef. And I was sitting there eating porridge, actually, and he came down with his newspaper and was reading it and put it down and said, why do you want to be such a little whore?
Really?
And I basically didn't respond. I was like, what the fuck, dude? Oh, what the heck, dude? And, and then he walked toward me, and his robe basically opened. So he was like, and he came near me and almost tried to grab my shoulder, and I bolted. I literally jumped out of my seat and ran and told the ballers, he just tried to assault me and everything else. And they said, we'll take care of it, Charlotte. Don't say anything. But he never touched me. He was just a really mean, creepy guy. And
were there any stories about him drugging people?
I don't know about that, but I'm sure it was within his scope. He was a really creepy. You know what? Before that, I had loved his comedy.
Yeah, I know you can't go back and watch it now because so much of it is creepy. Especially that TV series he did where he was the coach at the high school. When you watch that, man, there's a lot of creepy stuff going on over there, man. You can't go back and watch his stuff anymore after you know about him.
Well, his one and only son, I guess, had a flat tire. It was on Mulholland Drive, and he was killed. And people said it was because Bill Cosby owed a lot of debt to the Russian mafia. I don't know whether that's true or not, but, it's like that old thing that, sons pay for the fathers, or daughters and sons pay for the mother, daughters, or fathers.
Yeah, the sins of the parents. Yeah, passed on.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I had a guest on the show named Jewel Starr, who was she was related to that young lady who thought that she was Bill Cosby's daughter, and they were in negotiations to settle that case with her. And then after his son got killed, he had her arrested the next day. So Bill Cosby's I'm no fan of Bill Cosby. Okay, under many circumstances. But you said that if you were wearing a white robe, that meant you were involved in an orgy with Hef?
Well, a white robe meant that you were, in the activity of whatever went on. I think one time I went, and I just sat there and watched all of them. And I was like, and Hef was like, come on, join us. And I'm like, yeah, no. So I sat there and drank champagne and just was like a voyeur.
Now, what about the stories that he would have gay male porn on the TV screen as he was up there having sex with these women?
I never saw the gay porn, but I do know a couple of things that I can't really publicly say. I watched it, I experienced it, and it's just a little harsh for people. But yeah, there was gay, man, woman, whatever, went on a lot.
What about
and I kind of watch. I never really participated.
Yeah. What about these stories you hear about that there were tunnels underneath the Playboy Mansion?
Oh yeah, there are tunnels to. Well, when he married and then divorced Kimberly, there was a tunnel going underneath where you go like the grotto, and then there was the. Basically workout room, then you go down and there's another workout room, and then there's two doors that go out to tunnels to two other places. And yeah.
But two other places on the property, not to other homes in nearby neighborhoods like a mile away.
Two other homes.
Two other homes a mile away.
Well, I don't think they were a mile away, but I would say, maybe a quarter mile.
You were mentioning to me
because if you look at Homely Hills, you can't really go a mile out of it. And you've got roads on both sides, and it's a little enclave that is, you can't really go more than a quarter of a mile in tunnels.
So, but the stories that came out on April Fool's Day about tunnels going to Jack Nicholson's house and Robert Evans' house, is that true?
I haven't written the story, and I should.
Okay.
But, yeah, I stayed with Bob Evans for like 6 months. Then I had to go back to New York. When I came back, all my stuff was gone. And Jack Nicholson came over quite a few times. Nice man. No big deal. But I had a girlfriend come from San Francisco. And she came down, and we went to a party at Bob's house. And she said, you know what? I'm going to stay here. Because I was like, yeah, I'm leaving. And she stayed there. And the next morning...
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you want to get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Morning, she called me from the hospital because, like, her nose was broken, her face was, like, bashed in, and I went and then Bob had a limousine take us back to my house in Venice. And she wouldn't talk about it. She said, oh, I slipped and fell in the hot tub. And I said, really? That's how you get those injuries? I mean, her face was, like, bashed in. And I was like, oh, my God. I don't think we've talked since then because I was like, you have to, file a complaint. She said, no, I won't do that. And I was like, girl, why not? I mean, this is terrible.
Well, but the thing is,
And
when you look at
after
Bob Evans, the Cotton Club murders of Roy Radin, and Laney Jane, the cocaine smuggling woman. Did you meet her?
No, that was before my time.
Okay.
But yeah, all those stories. He was, his private bathroom had an black onyx toilet. I mean, the whole thing was black onyx, and it was all gold. And it's a private, private bathroom. Anyways, and I was like, good Lord. I mean, I went up to Donald Trump's penthouse when he had the penthouse at Trump Tower.
Yeah.
And I walked in, and all it is gold and mirrors. And, I mean, you walk in the bathroom, and there's everything's solid gold and mirrors. So everything's reflecting on you constantly. And we had dinner. My friend was a manager of a couple of his buildings. So met him through that. But, it's what people do with their money is kind of absurd.
So when you met Trump, it was like in a dating situation? Was it you went on a date with Trump?
No, I was with one of my best friends. He was a manager of 3 or 4 of his buildings. And Trump had asked him, to dinner. We went up. And it was just so gaudy.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, mirrors and gold.
So back to Evans, though. Back to Robert Evans. Robert Evans, he came out on the list as being one of Heidi Fleiss's clients, right? And I was actually involved with some fellows who had taped Heidi Fleiss's telephone.
I wouldn't doubt it, but she got her book from Alex,
right?
And Alex probably was, he was a client of hers.
Are you aware of the recording of Robert Evans asking for a 17-year-old girl?
No.
Did you ever see any indications of that kind of thing over at Robert Evans' house?
Bob Evans probably would, in my assumption, would probably do anything. Yeah, and probably younger the girl. That he always wanted to do, anal, but I said no. So the younger the girls were, and kind of stupid, he would take advantage of them. Absolutely. I mean, when he went broke, Jack Nicholson actually helped him out to keep him, and Allie McGraw, whatever. Anyways, his wife.
Charlotte Kemp, did you ever run across that model who was she was the Mariel Hemingway character in Manhattan, and she used to work for Evans, and she was an assistant for Jeffrey Epstein and also Woody Allen. Did you ever run into her around Evans?
No.
Christina Engelhardt?
I don't know, because basically he dealt with all his staff. And, I just say, I'm hungry, and but if I had known that about Jeffrey Epstein and all that, I would have just run out of there like. But Allie McGraw was staying in the guest house, and their son together was there too. it was just a mishmash of a lot of people. But I don't have any doubt that he would probably want younger girls that he could talk in to different sexual things.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're young and, you know, haven't experienced everything, basically you can be talked into anything, you know, because it doesn't seem weird since you've never experienced or heard of it. But, you know, he and I were together for like 6 months.
Especially someone like him who has so much experience, you know, taking advantage of young ladies all the time, you know, a lifetime of it, you know. It would be like a science to him.
I guess. Yeah. I don't know. He didn't take advantage of me. I would do something, you know, anyways. I mean, it was like kind of a normal relationship, except for he wanted to do more. I was like, no. But, you know, I was really young, too.
Yeah.
But I can't, like I said, I'm kind of a lone wolf. I can't really be talked into things because I just look at it and go, no.
No, you definitely have a very strong personality. That's for sure. What about, now you hear these stories about Hefner, right? That he had all these tape recordings. He would videotape people and then perhaps use that to something.
Oh, he had, and there was a closet,
right,
actually, in a full closet, and it had all videotapes of everything, especially in the bedrooms, of course. I never saw any of them, but yeah, that's true.
But the word is that these were Dolly Parton, Johnny Carson, and big celebrities and stuff on these tapes.
Well, you know what? That's how you blackmail people, right?
Well, you took the words right out of my mouth there.
That's how you blackmail people. And if they come in and they go for it and they don't know they're being recorded, even though when you walk into the foyer of the mansion, it said everything, you know, it's like a non-disclosure. Everything will be taped. And that was like in the grotto and the bedrooms, etc. There was not a place where there was not a camera. So, you know, live and let live. If you know what you're going into and you go into it, guess what? Blackmail.
We're talking to Charlotte Kemp. You can check her out on her website, cbkmediallc.com. The book we're talking about is Centerfolds, a collection of stories. So, Charlotte, now what about when you're living in the mansion? And my understanding, too, I told you I visited the mansion there because my friend had a limousine. He was advertising on the Playboy Channel in New York, and we were invited out there to the mansion. Now, but the women who live there...
in New York?
No, he was advertising in New York, but we flew out to California to go to this party at the mansion. Around 1982, it was right around that time. And my perception was the women who lived there, it was kind of like part of their employment is they had to spend a certain amount of times at the party, like a shift. Is that how that worked?
I didn't, but yes, Kim Mellon and a couple other girls in my book said that they would have to show people like the whole menagerie of flowers and animals, because he had a whole like zoo there, that they would have to spend a certain amount of time. I was never there long enough to do any of that, because I was always doing, you know, promoting and signing like for 2 years. But yeah, the women who actually stayed there and lived there, that was kind of their job.
Yeah, it was like a job, yeah. And they had hours that they had to put in every day. Now, so what about now when you're living there, you know, or like these other women, you're actually working there, you have to put in time. And then you have like difficult celebrities and difficult big shot advertisers who show up and are being obnoxious and stuff like that. Did you have a lot of problems like that? I can only imagine.
I didn't, because I don't fall for that crap.
Right.
You know, I'm like, you try that stuff on me and I'm just dismissive. Goodbye. But, yeah, of course. I was the first Miss Budweiser and the only one for 2 years until they branched off into Michelob and had like 6 or 5 girls, etc. But for 2 years, I was Miss Budweiser. And it was like, you know, I had a lot of pressure. I had to go every day of the week to, like, you know, South Padre, New York, Canada, California, I mean, all over, and be Miss Budweiser. And what we started doing, because I was, like, drinking beer all the time, it was like, ugh. So we'd, like, dump out the beer and just put water in it. Because I was, like, basically drunk all the time. And I'm like, yeah, this has got to change. But I was assaulted by, he worked as, and they fired him, I heard later, but he assaulted me. And he was the head of their, basically, promotions and everything else.
He worked for Budweiser.
But I went, you know.
He worked for Budweiser?
Yeah.
And he assaulted you. What state did that happen in?
In Missouri.
Missouri, okay. And how old were you at the time? Roughly.
Really young. I would say 22.
22, gotcha. Okay.
But I went to, you know, the Cardinals won in 83 and 84. The championship and everything. And I went and sat with the Bush family. Actually, Budweiser is not family name.
Anheuser-Busch, not the George Bush family, right?
It's the Bush family, spelled differently.
Yeah.
And sat with them and everything. And this guy who was the head of their, you know, promotions and everything department, said, "Oh, don't stay in the hotel. Come stay with me." And I'm like, okay. And he took me to this guy who did reproductions. He said, "I've got your centerfold." I had him, you know, everything. I got there, and it was another girl. And I said, "That's not me." Everything. And then he got really angry and basically put a chain around my neck, like a collar, and it happened so fast, and then tied me to the ground for like 2 days. Finally, I got out and grabbed the key to his Porsche. Was flying down, you know, out of St. Louis to the airport, and this cop stopped me, and I was like, "Oh God, why?" He said, "Oh my God." Well, he said, you know, name and everything, and he said, "I knew you were Charlotte Kemp," and basically he stopped me because he wanted to flirt, and I was like, "What the heck, man? Seriously? I'm trying to escape for my life, and you're stopping me," you know. I mean, it was just weird. But I got to go through Bruce School and see the barns they have with all the horses and Dalmatians. I mean, these horses are treated better than most, I would say 98% of human beings. They were just,
Charlotte,
Clydesdales were just
awesome. Let me ask you a question. Going through life, okay, and you've made your living off of extraordinary beauty, okay? Because Playboy Centerfold, my goodness, you know, like, how many women have been Playboy Centerfolds? You know what I mean? Like on one.
There's only 12 a year.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. So you've made your life's off of extraordinary beauty. Many positives came from that. But isn't it sometimes, too, it's a curse? Like you said, this cop pulling you over, being a jerk. Like, what the hell? You can't just drive your car without some cop saying, oh, I'm going to use my authority to pull this girl over. What do you make of that? Is it also a curse to be so beautiful?
I don't think of myself as so beautiful. I never really ever saw myself like that. I knew I was pretty, but, so many people, you're so beautiful. I'm like, okay, but, I have a perimeter, basically like an eggshell, that I keep around me, and, the walls, defensive walls, etc., that people can't come into. And the thing is that in my little bubble, I don't think of myself as an extraordinary beauty, even though I have been told. But at the same token, it's like I've never really tried to. I mean, I stopped acting after Frank Hooker. I was up for like 3 different commercials, and we went to L.A. commercials and everything. And I said, nope, not doing it. I completely flat out stopped. And you know what? When I see myself on film or whatever, I am like, ugh, I'm my own worst critic.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I didn't want to say other people's words. I wanted to, write. Because a lot of the words didn't make sense to me for the character, and it was like, becoming the character, blah, blah, blah. But
hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
I just thought, you know what? I have the exterior may be beautiful, but the interior is smart. And it's, it's hard to put those two together.
But when today, right? And if you look at a young lady today, let's say 18 years old, and you see this, a strikingly beautiful young lady just about to enter college, do you look at that young lady and say, oh my God, she's blessed with that beauty, or hey, that beauty could be a curse for this young lady?
I can't really judge women like that. It's either they're going to either follow their path or they're not. I mean, it's just, I can't really judge women on that. I mean, at 18 years old, women are getting Botox, or young women are getting Botox and having their face changed and everything else. And it's like, why?
Yeah, that's a... Yeah. But like you just said before, you said, well, when I look at myself, I don't see this incredible beauty. Because women like that, too. They only see their little flaws. They got these imaginary flaws that they see of themselves. But let's get back to, we've been talking about the book here, Centerfolds, a collection of stories. Okay, we're almost out of time. So now, you were saying before that you maybe have another book coming. What would be in the next book that you haven't covered in this book?
More stories and just, playmates and photographers, bearing their hearts out of stories that they don't usually. I mean, this book, the collection, Centerfolds, is a collection of stories that these playmates, photographers, have not actually said or bared their souls. And in the book, they do. And it's quite extraordinary when you read some of these stories. You kind of go, wow, what? And people, have sent me the books, and I sign them and everything and send them back, and they're like, wow, I never knew. And then basically it's kind of like an eye-opener of personal stories. Yeah,
and if you go to Amazon, it's got 4.7 stars ratings, practically a slam dunk in ratings. And all of the comments say just like you said there. They talk about the pictures inside the book, pictures you've never seen before, candid images and stuff like that, quality photography in the book here. Centerfolds, a collection of stories by Charlotte Kemp that you could find there. Let me ask you this. We only got a couple of minutes. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you want the audience to know about today?
Oh, yeah. Who are you?
Who am I, or who are you?
Who are you?
That's a tough question. That's a tough question.
See, you asked me to bare my soul, but you can't bare yours?
Well, the audience already knows me, and I've been around a long time. Yeah, but
I'd like to hear it.
Well, I've been around a long time. I've done a lot of things, been involved in a lot of stuff, and still am, okay?
Yeah, but you're fascinating in your own self. So,
no, I've done quite an interesting life, yeah. I would say. Yeah.
But the Centerfolds is, it was a long time coming.
Yeah.
And a lot of redoing everything else. And taking out stories because they were kind of like boring, but putting like the real gritty stuff in it. And that's what I wanted because a lot of women won't do that. I mean, they're like, but I kind of have a good rapport with a lot of playmates and they trust me. And in this book, when the editor was editing things, I said, no, we can do the ums and the ahs and maybe like commas or whatever, but it will stay in their own words. And every woman, I would read their stories back to them, and they said, okay. Because, an editor would change the whole story to make it sound very, waspish. But, and I said, no, I want every story to be in their own words.
Are you finding now that, because I've tried to contact a lot of former playmates to come on the show and spill, do you find now that the people are more willing to talk now that the mansion's been sold and kind of shut down and half is passed on?
Actually, the mansion, the guy who owns it, has been doing like a huge amount of like, refurbishing, et cetera, et cetera. And Cooper Hefner, I saw a thing a while ago. I think it was GoFundMe or something. He wanted to raise $100 million to buy back the Playboy brand from this guy, a corporation who had bought it.
Yeah.
And I had made so many suggestions about the clothing, wear, and everything. And when I went to Japan, and I'll say this very quickly, but the Playboy clothing line was like, oh my God, it was like Bergdorf, it was on that scale of high fashion. Here, it was a Sunshine something company, and they'd given them the license for the clothing. And I was like, can you not see that women don't just wear like short shorts and, crappy outfits, that it could be a higher, brand? It's still on just deaf ears.
Yeah, that's true. And perfumes and stuff like that, all kind of stuff they could have marketed, right?
Yeah, but at a higher class.
Yeah.
Then this company had brought it down to like, wife beaters and T-shirts and, shorts that don't actually go over your butt. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm not complaining.
And I was like, oh my God, in Japan, it's like a Bergdorf Goodman and, a Neiman Marcus. I mean, that's the level.
Once again, Charlotte Kemp, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on the show. You can find Charlotte Kemp. If you want to contact her to do an interview with her, but probably the best way is to reach out to her either on Facebook or on Instagram at CBK Media LLC. But if you just put in Charlotte Kemp, it pops right up really pretty easily. The book we've been talking about is called Centerfolds, a collection of stories. You can check that out too as well. Charlotte Kemp, thank you so much for coming on the show and giving me so much of your time today.
I so appreciate that in such a quick time that we have connected. I truly appreciate it.
I feel the same way, my friend. Thank you so much. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.